needs to.
Good
Uh-oh.
evening. How's everybody?
Good evening. We're fine. How about yourself?
I'm just excited to be here.
Hi.
Looking forward to seeing everybody. I told you this is the highlight of my day. Getting to see all of y'all, thinking about being there. Was it not this weekend, but next? I called down there. I couldn't find a place for us to eat there in the building. We got to figure something out though. We've got to figure out what we're going to do for lunch. We'll get that on our agenda. If I can't find us a place there in the building, and I've called them and they said no, but if I can't find a place, we'll just have to go someplace. And I'll be looking for a place for us to go have lunch. We'll have to find us someplace close by to do that. So we'll be on that. So be prepared to go to lunch on Saturday. I know y'all want to on Sunday. Y'all want to go home on Sunday. So we'll do something for lunch on Saturday. Let's welcome everybody. Let's look at our schedule and see where we are for our course. Let me share my screen. Got a couple of documents pulled up here. Here we go. So this is our last class. We have our last chapters tonight on Bowman and Deal. And then we'll be together not this weekend, but next weekend, the 16th and 17th, and we'll do human resources at the school level. I've added an article, and I want you don't have to do anything other than read it and think about it because I want to discuss it when we get together. Tonight's presenters, uh, class 7, Karis, James, and Pauline. James. Is James with us? Remind me if James shows up tonight to tell him to submit his EDP. It's ready to go to task stream. We got one more and everybody be done on that. Y'all are all ahead on points, so everybody's good. So everybody's the star of the week this week. So I added this article and I want y'all to read it. It's not a very long article, and I put it under Saturday. This is something that I've been uh, I've thought about for a long time. And I've got the actual written article and I've got a link, and you can do either one. Same article, read it online. Why companies should not aspire to be like a family. And it's basically a personnel article. But that's one of the things that I have believed for a very long time, that we should not aspire to be like a family. Now, again, I'm not giving myself any credit, but this is one of the things that I've talked about for a very long time, and it lists a number of reasons. They all relate back to personnel, and it's. I wish I'd been smart enough to write this article. This lady's really done a good job. It's very concise, but it's to the point. And basically, is you can't run a business like a family from a personnel perspective. And I hear that all the time. We're a family here. We're going to create a family. Well, family, you have to live with them and put up with whatever behavior they exhibit. You can't do that and run a business, though. And so now, if you have a opposing view to that, I'd love to hear it, and make an argument. But I think this would be a good kickoff to our weekend in terms of how to run personnel at the school level. I think this will be of value to us. All right, so without further ado, again, everybody's the star of the week because everybody's where we need to be on points. I think Pauline's still probably ahead, but everybody's right there at 1,400, so that's great. I couldn't be happier. All right, so I will stop my share. Well, let me go back to this, and so Karis leads us off tonight. Then hopefully James will join us, and then Pauline. So I'll stop my share and turn my camera off so Karis can get started.
All right.
Good evening. I will be presenting on chapter 17 and 18, looking at Bowman and Deal, what they have to tell us about chapter 17 and 18. And so in chapter 17, it looks at leadership in theory and practice. And chapter 17, just ironically, ties it into the election. Um, and so it's looking at leadership lessons from the viewpoint of an election. So structure matters, but it's not always sufficient for leadership success. You have to shape the narrative in order to control how voters perceive you and your opponent. A leadership reality is you need a coalition stronger than your opposition. And um, in the book, in this particular chapter, it actually started with doing a comparison when you're looking at the election through four frames, reveals important lessons for leadership, such as structure, people, politics, and symbols. So they did a comparison of Clinton versus Trump in the 2016 election, and then a comparison of Biden versus Trump in the 2020 election. And Clinton was the first woman nominated to run for president by a major party, while Trump was the first major candidate who had no previous political or military experience. But the polls predicted Clinton would win, and she won the popular vote, but Trump won the electoral college vote. And then Trump ran his campaign on Make America Great Again, and people were less clear of Clinton's core message. And then Trump ran again in the midst of the global pandemic in which the U.S. led the world in the most deaths. He ran for re-election against Biden. Trump's ratings dropped lower than any other president in history. And Biden focused on culture and gained votes from college students, women, and people of color. Biden won the presidential election in 2020. And again, this section was, very, very interesting. Again, as we are in the political election year this year. And what stood out to me was again about the power of words, the power of words. And then within this chapter, it talked about the quantitative analytic leadership. And the first one, it talks about the trait theory, and that is how are leaders different? How are leaders different? Leadership style theory looks at how do leaders act? How do they act? We can see the commercials, we can see them speaking in different arenas. So looking at their leadership style theory, again, focuses on how do these leaders act. The contingency theory looks at how do the circumstances affect leadership. You can have different world circumstances, and how does that affect leadership? And then it looks at leader member, what happens in the leader follower relationship. And then there's transformational leadership theory. How do leaders transform followers? How do leaders transform followers? And then the qualitative holistic leadership, this focuses on balancing technical and human factors to achieve cooperation among groups and individuals within organization. And I definitely, looking at this visual, kind of looks at how we are as leaders in our roles that we do. You're trying to juggle so many different things. And leadership is about balancing or integrating concerns for task and the people. But what defines leadership? Leadership is an activity, it's not a position. Leadership is different from management. Leadership is multilateral, not unilateral. Leadership is contextual and situated not in the leader, but in the exchange between the leader and their constituents. Leadership is distributed rather than concentrated at the top. And then there was a survey that was taken to look at the different types of leadership styles. And the first one was on, these were the top six after the survey was taken of different leadership styles. And it was charismatic, values-based, and this leader sets high standards and seeks to inspire people around a vision, emphasize the core values. The second one was about team oriented. The leader evokes pride, loyalty, and cooperation, values the team cohesiveness and shared goals. Participative. This leader encourages input in decisions, emphasizes delegation and equality. And then humane. The leader is patient, supportive, concerned, and cares for others' welfare. Anonymous. The leader is independent and individualistic and puts self at the center. Protective. Leader emphasizes procedures, status, face saving, and safety and security of individual group. So we can all look at these six and figure out as leaders, even within this class, kind of where, because these were the top six as they did a world survey of all the different leadership styles. And these were the top six that came out. And it's just like, and I had to take a deeper dive and say, where do I kind of see myself in these six different leadership styles here? And is this something that I really need to kind of hone in on and tweak myself as a leader? Or am I poured into maybe more than one of these different styles? And
Sorry.
then,
I'm sorry, we only see your first slide.
oh, did nobody stop me?
I'm sorry. When you said these six, that's when I realized it.
Lord. Okay. Y'all just let me just roll on. You only saw the very first slide?
We still see your opening slide. We thought you were just telling us the story.
That's what I thought.
Oh no. Okay. I'm gonna stop share and put it back up again. Wow. Can y'all see that?
We see Leadership in Theory and Practice, Chapter 17.
Okay. Hold on, because it's not moving on my end. Okay. So you all didn't see this slide either, I take
No,
it.
but you told us about it.
Okay, so I'm
Go
gonna
to the
keep
one with
going.
the six leadership styles. That's the one we want to see.
Okay. There we go. This is what the Globe Research did, the six leadership styles. This is where I was before I stopped. And again, these were the top ones that came out of that research, the Globe Research. And again, as leadership roles that we all have, even for me, I had to had to look over this and say, where do I see myself? Or if I had to take the survey, where do I think I will fall in these top six leadership styles?
All right. Let's pause here for a minute and let's do our theoretical work. All right. Autonomous leader is independent and individualistic and puts self at the center. Number 5. What would we call, what is the theory behind that one? Does anybody know what that leadership theory is? That's the transactional leadership theory. All right, write that down. Number one, charismatic, values-based. Leader sets high standards, seeks to inspire people around him, emphasizes. All right, that's a transformational leader. Inspires and motivates. So your theoretical framework and all your literature on that one will be based on transformational leadership. Humane leader is patient, supportive, concerned, and cares for others' welfare. That would be your servant leader. Six is transactional. Five is transactional or autocratic. That would be Kurt Lewin's autocratic. If we wanted to call, if we wanted to go back old, that's old school, Kurt Lewin, autocratic. That became transaction. But that autonomous leader, that came from the autocratic leader from Kurt Lewin. He's your theorist on that one. Team oriented. That's that shared governance leadership style. There's several authors in that one, but that's the shared governance one. Participative is situational. That's Hershey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory. Participative, which relegate or regulates task and relationship behaviors, emphasizes delegation quality. That would be situational leadership. Now, it's important to know your theorist again when it comes dissertation time. If you've got something in the leadership realm, remember we always start with our seminal work. So Bowman and Deal is not a seminal work. It is quality work. You can use it, but you always have to trace back to the original leadership theory and that work. And one of the mistakes that students make in their literature review is doing something like this and not realizing that these people didn't come up with this stuff. They're writing a book about other people's work, basically, and putting a modern or practical spin on it. But always remember, you got to go back. So leadership, you had Kurt Lewin back in the 40s and 50s. You had Redden and all the Ohio State contingency people of the 60s, which became situational in the 70s and 80s. And then we went to shared values leadership, and then we're in the transformational. Now, transactional is bad. That's where leadership is a position. That's the people that remind you every time they meet, every time you see them, what their job title is. That they base their leadership on their title, not on any competence or ability or any of those kinds of things. I'm right because I hold the position. Might is right kind of thing. And so this is a leadership curriculum. If you're doing something in your dissertation, and most of you will, that touches on leadership, be sure you hit your major theorists and not just your textbook people. Okay. This is good information to have. It kind of breaks it down, but these are generalizations. We can talk about these a lot in our literature, but we have to go back to the seminal work and then we bring it up to date with this kind of thing. That's one of the things that folks don't understand about their lit review. You start with the seminal work and you work your way through on the theoretical side. You go back to them and then you bring up more modern studies and works and books like this that are based on that work, but you have to go back to that work. So for your theoretical framework or your conceptual framework, always start with your seminal work. All right. One of the things that Cara said, and I'll get back to her in just 1 second, is power of words. I want us to talk about that a little bit later when she gets through, is the power of words versus the power of graphics and pictures and those kinds of things. I want to talk, I want us to talk about that a little bit tonight as well. That power of words, I always try to seize on that. All right, Karis, back to you. Thank you.
Okay. And then it goes into talking about gender and leadership. Do men and women lead differently? Of course, there are lots of opinions about this. Men and women in similar positions are not dramatically different in the eyes of their subordinates. Women have scored higher with charisma, inspiration, and intellectual stimulation. The differences are not large, but companies with more women in senior management perform better. Why the glass ceiling and the glass cliff? Contributing factors that sustains the glass ceiling. Stereotypes associate leadership with maleness. Typically, when you think about a leader, you think about a male. That's a stereotype. Women walk a tightrope of conflicting expectations. Women enter discrimination. Parenting has a positive career impact for men, but a negative one for women. Women pay a higher price with less pay. Women in high positions are pushed toward the glass cliff where they are more likely to fail.
What does that mean?
Pushing women in high power positions or leadership positions, and this is just my thoughts on it. And they get there to these high positions and unable to, they're put in compromising positions that predict that they will fail. It's almost like a setup for failure. That's the way I took it. I took it that women can rise to those top positions, but once they get there, they are all kind of barriers. There are all kind of things where if they were on the same pathway with a male headed in the same direction, the male will land in that position and not face as many of the challenges that a woman would face as they continue to climb higher. Just the different barriers or the different things at a higher level, the pressures, the different things like that women face that men don't.
Okay. Let's take a little different take on it now. Let me look and see. Lauren's here tonight. All right, Lauren. Where are you principal?
Hawfields Middle School in Alamance County.
Okay. What kind of school is it?
It's the largest middle school. We're pretty diverse. Yeah, I would say I'm actually about 30, 30, 30 for Hispanic, African American, white students. 6-8 comprehensive middle school.
All right.
About 900 kids this year.
All right. Would you consider being principal there high risk or low risk in terms of being successful?
I would say it's low risk, but I would say my husband is also a principal in the district at a middle school, and I face challenges that he does not face as a white male in the position.
Okay. The whole notion of the glass cliff in the school business is we hire women for jobs, but we give them the worst ones that they're most likely to fail at. That's what the glass cliff is. We'll take a chance on a woman or a minority, but we put them in really tough situations that white men don't want. That's the whole notion of the glass cliff. And it happens in a lot of districts. That's why I tell a lot of, just like for my master's folks who are aspiring to be assistant principals, I tell them, you're going to go to a Title I, you're going to go to a low performer, you're going to go to an at-risk school. And they say, well, they have openings at the good schools too. But I said, yeah, but the other APs will transfer into them. You'll have to start out at the bottom of the rung. It's kind of the way it goes. And when women get their first job, they put, especially women and even minorities, But when women get put in their first real administrative job, it's always at a more difficult place than the man's first job. That's almost always the case in the school business. And that's what creates the glass cliff in the school business, where women are at much higher risk of failure because they're at much tougher schools. And then when they fail, well, see there, we told you women couldn't do this kind of thing. That happens a lot, even in modern society. You'd think, we've not come nearly as far as we thought we had. So
Right, but wouldn't that be that would also from the perspective of leadership, you could take that same spin and place this scenario in any business or anything.
oh
You know, we're
yes,
gonna
absolutely. But I mean, I'm just relating
Yeah.
to the school business.
yeah
Oh yes,
that
yes.
we would put women
In the tougher jobs, and the ones
yes.
and also in speak to. I teach and work in the organizational leadership, not as much as I used to, but in that realm, what we talk about is we generally put women in the kinds of jobs where failure is more likely than we put men. For
Mhm.
example, in organizations, we'll put women in retention or marketing where there's an actual number. We put men in jobs where there's not really, it's more of a subjective, what kind of job they're doing. We put women in jobs where there's actual numbers. We can see if we kept more than we did last year, or if we got more than we got last year. You'll tend to notice that in organizations. Men tend to filter to the subjective. He's doing a great job based on what metric? Well, everybody likes him, or everything's been going good. We put women in jobs, we have bottom line numbers. We know if they exceeded what they did last time, or we put them in a position where we can see if this year's metric's better than last year's metric. We tend to do that in businesses. In schools, we tend to put them in, again, the numbers, we put them in lower performing schools. But that's exactly right, Carlos. But it's just much more evident in the school business than it is in many organizations. But you'll notice women generally in organizations are in fields where there's an absolute metric. It's not subjective, it's objective, their evaluation.
Now, I will say this is not my first principalship. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
did have data to show that I could do it. My first principalship was much more high risk. Once I showed how I grew students, how, we turned proficiency around, everything like that. This is not my first principalship. So at this point, it's a different situation.
That's correct. And that's why I called on you. We've talked about, I was aware of that. See, Lauren, this is not her first time out. She had to go to the slaughterhouse first and prove herself before she got a better school. We don't do that to men. We do that to women regularly. And if they can survive it, then they can get a better school. But a lot of them can't survive that, especially their first time out. But we don't tend to do that with men. One of my doctoral students, she's in 736 in Charlotte. She's one semester ahead of y'all. She just left the district where she was teaching because they had a opening at a really good school for an AP. Now she's in the doctoral program. She's worked in Charlotte. She's back home in a rural district now. She's minority, and she's got her degree, she's got certification, she's got experience, but it was a plum job at the best high school in the district, and so they gave it to a guy who's not even started this program yet because it's guaranteed to be successful. Now, they talked to her about going to Carver, a place like that where she'll never get out, but she's destined to fail. And she said, I know where this is headed for me. And so she has not only left the district, she went across the line and left the state's border county, which is a smart thing to do. And they've already got her on leadership track. But, this job was too good. Now, if it had been the job at Carver, she'd have got it. But this job was too good because it was at where all the doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs kids go to school. Most small districts, county districts, that the county high school that's at the county seat where the hospital and the courthouse are, is always going to be 10 or 15 point higher scoring on proficiency than any of the other schools in the district. And that's where the AP vacancy came available. Oh no, we can't put her there. We'll give her Carver. And that hurts me. She was my intern when she was at Bruns in Charlotte. I mean, she's been through, I still think of her when I held her the first time when she was barely able to walk. I taught her father in school. I worked with her grandfather. She's like one of mine. But she's minority in a white district ruled by the Red Party. And, the only shot she'll ever get is at a minority school, which will be hard, which is a revolving door in that county. So that's what we're talking about. That glass cliff, that's the only opportunity she'll ever get. So she's got to go somewhere where she can get a shot at least, where she can get a shot. She's not, I still think of her again. I still think of her as a kid, but she's 35 years old. She can't be dallying around anymore. Waiting on her turn. She's 35 years old. She's had her kids. They're about school age. It's time to be thinking about career. But that's what Courtney faces. And so she's moved on, and I'm so thankful. But that's the reality of the glass cliff, folks. I think it plays a bigger part in schools than the glass ceiling does. Glass ceiling is a lot more real in business. Schools, it's really the glass cliff. All right, back to Chorus.
Okay. These are just some final thoughts on this chapter on leadership. We want to make sure that we recognize the correlation between power and position. Qualitative and quantitative studies on leadership are similar and helps us understand the characteristic of leaders and how leaders work. Culture and gender play a major role in determining who leads and how they can be most effective. Leadership is widely misunderstood. And in chapter 18, it looks at reframing leadership and structural leadership characteristics. Structural leaders do their homework. Structural leaders rethink the relationship of structure, strategy, and environment. Structural leaders focus on implementation. Effective structural leaders experiment. And on this particular section, I thought about currently as a leader in my district, these different components about structural leaders rethink the relationship of structure, strategy, and the environment, and effective structural leaders experiment. It seems like I'm always in the midst of looking at the data and then having to look at structure and strategy and come up with an implementation plan for a project for improvement, for student improvement. It's looking at in a small district that doesn't have a lot of resources, but pulling what I can, some things that they've never done before, to move forward with structure for student achievement. And then the whole thing with reframing leadership. When is leadership effective and when is it not? So in those frames, you have structural, you have the human appeasement, you have political, symbolic, and then you have the human resource. So structural, with the frame of that, the leader is an analyst, sort of a builder, architect. The strategies that they use, analysis, design, and you don't want to be an ineffective leader, being petty with what you're doing in your leadership. and then looking at the process of leadership, very detailed process on realigning, renegotiating formal policies. And again, personally, in my role right now, I looked at that frame, that structural frame, and what I'm currently doing, human appeasement. These leaders, very needy, just trying to please those that are around them, need training to develop new skills, need a whole lot of psychological support. And a leader is in effect always just going, you have to serve because we are servants, but at some point in time, you know that you have to rise and be the leader. And you don't want to be in that realm of being a pushover. And then there's the political framework, being an advocate, a warrior, a negotiator, looking at those strategies. Got to be able to persuade, again, negotiate, coerce, only if necessary. But you don't want to be also considered a person that's a con artist or a thug when you're when you're doing the that framework of the political side and get into manipulation and fraud and offering something that people want to believe regardless of the validity of that. And then the symbolic frame looks at clinging to the past yet communicates a vision for the future. Leading by example, using the symbols to capture attention, uses images and slogans, but lacks substance to the message. That's one they're using those symbols, but they're using them in the wrong capacity. And then, it just becomes a bunch of smoke. But they have all these images out here and they're using these symbolic slogans and capture their audience to buy into what they're trying to do. And then there's the human resource side. The leader is passionate about productivity through the people, empowers others. But then you can, on that human resource side, what you don't want to be is someone that's controlling, someone that's demanding. And no matter what, I'm going to grow this organization, regardless of whose toes I got to step on or what I have to do. I'm in this position, and this is what I'm going to do. So again, when is leadership effective, and when is it not? So looking at those different frames, and we all can probably see in our schools and what we deal with, you can kind of pick out some of these and pinpoint. Either it's your human resource director, it could be student services, it could be the assistant superintendent of curriculum, and you can kind of put these. It could be the superintendent, but you can put these different leaders into these different types of frameworks. And then conclusion, managers combine multiple frames into a comprehensive approach to leadership. Wise leaders understand their own strengths and strives to build a diverse team that offers a leadership in all four frames: structural, human resource, political, and symbolic. And this actually forgot my quotes, but this is a quote from the book. Leaders' stories succeed when they offer something that people want to believe, regardless of historical validity or empirical support. Even a flawed story will work if it taps persuasively into the experience, values, and hopes of the listener. So it could be something that's flawed, but if it seems to tap and your ability to persuade into the experience, values, and hopes of listeners, then you've got them. And it could be a bunch of lies, but it's just how you put that spin on what you say. Thank you.
All right, so thank you, Cars. What that depends on is people not understanding the difference between personal truth, political truth, and objective truth. Objective is that empirical, based on research and numbers. Personal truth is because you've had an experience, you believe that. And your political truth is I have to support my tribe and I have to believe whatever they say. The problem in leadership is that might work in politics, but it works, it has a limited run there and it doesn't work in organizations. You have to deal with objective truth. But yes, leaders pull out all those stops. Now, power of words. You know, I am cranky old man when it comes to proposal and final defenses of dissertations. I won't, I sat in on one this week and she had a Canva. Stuff just kept popping up on the screen and all that. And she was lucky that I wasn't on her committee. Now I was in there. I'm the department chair and the program lead, so I was in there. But now when she left, her chair only carried half of her behind home because I chewed the other half off. That will not happen again. If you can't tell your story, you can't lead. And if you need all these tricks and visuals and fireworks and all this other stuff, and you have to sit and read it, you can't lead. Power of your words is where the leadership comes from. As Cars pointed out, good or bad. It's the power of your words. All this other stuff, is messaging. For good or for evil, it's the power of your words that people will follow. Billboards and yard signs and all that stuff, it's not worth the paper it's printed on if you can't get in front of people and speak and get them riled up and get them going in a direction, whether it's a good direction or a bad direction. It's that power of persuasion from that. That's where leadership emanates from. You can't be a leader sending out emails or reading stuff to people. I'll just tell you that right now. You can't do it. Now, in the political arena, to be able to get people to do what you want is, it's all about the political rally. It's talking to people and getting them all cranked up in person. That's where all that groundswell of support comes from. And it's the same way in any organization. I suspect that many of you grew up in a church and still probably attend a church. And you know what I'm talking about with you pastors. Some of them were good and could get people motivated and get a lot done with the church and the community and those kinds of things. And you had others that were good people that were people of God, but just could not lead. Just could not they could not deliver a sermon that motivated people. That's the easiest way to see that. It's the same way in our business, folks. If you don't have the power of persuasion, if you don't have the power of words, you will not be able to lead. I don't care how good a person you are. That's the expectation of leadership. I didn't make the rules. I'm just telling you what they are. I hate that. There's a lot of good people out there that never get their shot because of that and would be excellent at it, I think. But you're not going to be able, if you can't walk in the room and command the room, you can't lead. Can't be done. And you won't get, and the thing is, you won't get your shot. Now, I taught with Steve Laws for a number of years. He and I, brother-in-law, the course, I designed my own course for me and Steve. We would do it every fall for the EDCI ladies, and we were brother-in-law that thing. And one of the things that Steve was really good at, was trying to get those ladies to understand if you can't command the room, and we would work with them about being able to command a room when you came in. The curriculum people are smart, but they have no presence in the room. You don't even know they're there. How are you going to be able to lead? And that's one of the things that we really worked hard on with them, was getting them to be able to command a room, get people's attention. And that's the same for us. We know that because this is our business. They don't know that. But you got to know and recognize that, the power of words. Very good, Cars. Very good. James, you're next. James, remember to upload your EDP to task stream. I checked tonight. You've finished it, but you got to put it in task stream.
Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and share my screen. Make sure I share the right screen.
Yeah. Yeah, please do that. I worry sometimes what some of y'all got on your computers.
You ain't got to worry about me.
Scare me. I'm fearful sometimes. Somebody mentioned the other day, when we do this, we're taking a risk. about what y'all might share. I said, y'all, I'm taking the risk on what I might share. You just don't know me.
All right, I'm gonna leave that alone. Hey, I'm doing chapter 19 and chapter 20, and I thank you, Dr. Lamb, for giving me like the longest chapters in the book.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you.
Yeah. It's an opportunity to grow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's how I'm gonna look at it. Let's see. All right, so chapter 19, reframing change in organizations, which is a very interesting topic. And I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Let's see. Make sure I push the right buttons here. Okay, good. All right. So my first part is introduction to change in organizations. And talking about changes, challenges, and innovation is introducing change within organization is full of challenges. Those who benefit from the current state may resist the changes, fearing loss of or instability. And that's with anything, whereas in like you don't want it to change if it's already working for you. So if it's working for you, say why change it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But that's not how businesses or even organizations like schools work. So support and opposition of those changes, support comes from is often lukewarm. And it's lukewarm because it seems like people are quick to be able to jump on the other side if it doesn't work. They want to be in a place where, as in, if it works, they can say, "Well, I was part of it." If it doesn't work, then they say, "Well, it wasn't going. I knew it wasn't going to work anyway." And so that's why it's always interesting the people who are put towards innovations and things of that nature because they have a lot of vision to see where it can head to. But some of those ones that don't have the vision, those are the ones you have to worry about sometime. So the role of leadership is effective leadership is essential in driving change within organization. Leaders must be prepared to face opposition and rally support for their vision, emphasizing the importance of clear communication, shared goals to overcome resistance. And that's where everything is, even going into politics. If you are able to articulate and communicate what your vision is clear enough so everybody can understand what your vision is, that's when you're going to be a successful leader. And also that makes you a good innovator because a lot of people have a lot of good ideas out there, but you know that a lot of people's ideas usually don't get heard because they don't know how to articulate what their vision is, and they don't know how to get people to, like, just like Dr. Lamb was saying, to rally behind them and support their vision. So that's one of the things that as leaders, we got to understand. When we have a clear vision, then people are more apt to follow us than if we just say have a good idea that works here every now and then we expect people to just follow us. And sometimes that's just not the way things work. Now, the impact of change. Resistance comes from established members. Established members of an organization often perceive changes as threats to their status and security. Their resistance can manifest in various ways, including active opposition, passive disengagement, and which can stall or derail the change process. And that's what usually happens. People who really don't are really apprehensive about change, they're people in power. And that's what we always have to understand. People in power also are the ones who can hold us back. So we need to make sure that we have people who will support us when we're trying to get things done. That's going to be for the betterment of our organization. Potential for improved conditions. While some may resist change, others see the potential for improved conditions. It is essential for leaders to communicate the benefits clearly and demonstrate how changes can lead. And then you have build a change-ready culture. And this is the most important thing, whereas in you have to, if you want things to happen, if you want things to change, as you become a stronger leader, you have to build that culture. You have to build a culture for change to make people feel that, change is good, feel that change is something, whereas in it's gonna affect them positively in the long run, not necessarily right now, but even then, you don't want to always have to deal with setbacks to the point where, as in that you always have to defend your innovations and defend what you're wanting to do. You always want to build that culture, whereas in, and that's why you need to make short range plans instead of making long range plans, because you want them to see the change as you go along. Going to the next one, strategies for successful change. Engaging stakeholders. That's what we was talking about. Make sure we engage those stakeholders so they'll be able to support us. Effective communication. Be clear about what you want to do, and be clear about what you want to happen, and be clear about what it's going to look like. And then continuous evaluation and feedback. You want to know what your people are thinking. You want to know what you want to after you make some changes. You want to evaluate like where we are right now, and then you want that feedback. Whereas in you want that data to show that we're heading in the right direction. So we don't want, because we always want to keep our people informed that we're the leaders that they thought we was going to be. Political context and change. And it's so interesting that we had this these chapters right after this election. Very, very, very interesting. So let's talk about the promise of change. And going back to what Karis was talking about, the 2008 election, Barack Obama ran for president in 2008 on the platform that emphasized the promise of change. His campaign focused on the need for a new direction in American politics, because all we talked about with Obama was change. He was talking about change, and we felt that him being the first Black president in the United States, that would spark some kind of change. But then defending his record, which in 2012 Barack faced re-election, and he had to defend his record against the Republican challenger Mitt Romney. Y'all remember that? And that was because Mitt Romney, he had ran on change because he was going to change the state of the things that Obama was doing, and Obama had to make sure that his changes were the changes that he had promised in his 2008 election. Plus, he had re-emphasized that he wasn't finished. So, defending his record, it worked for him to get reelected in 2012. Now, here's the part that becomes interesting. The concept of change has been a recurring theme in presidential races, illustrating how candidates leverage the idea of transformation to rationale with voters, because voters like change. But what we see later on with opposing views to change, Romney's alternate vision, Governor Romney campaign in 2012 provided a contrasting perspective on change, where he critiqued Obama's approach and offered his own vision. Okay, and his creation of a dynamic conversation about effectiveness of different strategies for achieving change. So Romney said, even though that he was talking about change, that a lot of things that he was talking about was not saying that Obama's ways wasn't good. He was saying, well, we can still do it. We can do it different. But he really didn't say really that he can do it better. And so using the political landscape, the political context surrounding the notion of change is shaped by various factors, including economic conditions, public opinion, and evolving priorities of the electorate. Understanding the landscape is crucial. So as this relates to us, we have to understand that when we put together an idea and a vision, there's a lot of elements that's going on out there. Some of the elements is not just about the data that we have about our organization, but also what the political atmosphere is about what we're about who we're affecting, who we're saying that we want to affect with our changes in our organizations, and maybe those changes in organizations maybe not benefit the political powers that's out there. And evolving definitions of change. As a political landscape shift, the definition of change evolves as well. And we can tell that Obama's change is different than the changes of later presidential candidates, and we'll talk about later on. So the impact of voter engagement, the promise of change can serve as powerful mobilizers for the voters' engagement. Candidates who effectively articulate their vision and tend to generate higher levels of interest and participation among the electorate. Change as a campaign strategy. Political campaigns frequently employ the narrative of change as a strategy to differentiate themselves from opponents. Now, looking at this, when we look at, and I don't want to get too much into the politics, but when we talk about change, as in some of the things that happens, as in people like change, but sometimes when we look at change and we look at change, we say, is that really change from what what we were doing before, or is that just the same old thing, just put in another box? And so we have to make sure that if we're doing change, we got to look at how the change is going, how the perception of change is going to look to people who we're saying is going to be a change, and change in the context of hope. For many voters, the idea of change is intertwined with hope for a better future. Leaders who can inspire hope through their vision for change often find greater success in garnering the public support. So a good politician is a person who will make sure that he makes sure that he kind of sets the context on his terms, as in, you think that this is good, but maybe that's not as good as you think it is. Maybe something else that would be better. And that's why a lot of leaders have to redefine what change is according to the audience and according to the people who they are talking to, because change today looks different than change back in Ronald Reagan's day, or change back in even President Bush's day. So change is all contextual, as in where you're coming from. Like the baby boomers don't have a different concept of change than than Generation Z. The Generation Z is still figuring out what happened just 4 years ago, and so now that's where their concept of what's good for America is different than what we might consider. And that's my and talking about Hillary Clinton's campaign strategy, we talk about strategy, and this is where we need to understand that if you are a leader and you are straddled in or you lukewarm in your perception, as in what you think change is going to be, that's when it's really hard for you to get that hardcore support, because your strategy is that I'll take in anything and everything that's going to be good that the voters might like, but then the voters are still figuring out where are you really in your stance on certain things. Continuity with Obama. Clinton's strategy included a focus on maintaining the successful policies established by President Obama. By aligning herself with his legacy, she aimed to attract voters and appreciated his governance. Interesting. It sounds familiar. Okay. And by the way, y'all, I'm not a Republican. Anyway, change versus status quo. Clinton's dual message of change and continuity was a defining feature of her campaign. While she promised to continue the positive aspects of Obama's presidency, she also recognized the need of innovation and reform by trying to capture a broad spectrum of voter sentiments. So her innovation was that she was going to try to capture the different political views on certain things and aspects of how we should center our politics in America. And the thing about that is that even though that sounds very democratic, the people who want to support visionaries want to really want to make a decision, whereas they support somebody who has a strong conviction in one direction than the other. Okay, so now Donald Trump's change. This is in the book, y'all. I'm just reading this in the book. All right, so that's unabashed. He was a
Still with us, James? I think we've lost James. Yeah, we lost James. We'll give him a minute and we'll move on. Pauline, are you ready to go tonight? All right, share your screen, and if James gets back with us, we'll go back to him.
Got it. Can you see the screen?
hey,
Yes, we
hey, guys.
can.
Is he back?
How don't I lose y'all? I lost
Are
y'all
you
that long?
back?
Yes, I'm back. Did I
All
lose y'all
right.
that?
We'll stop Pauline share. We lost you there. You went completely out on us. We didn't know if you were going to come back tonight or not.
Oh gosh, I didn't know I was out that long. Okay, I thought y'all cut me off because I was talking about Donald Trump.
Nope. Nope.
Can I share my screen? I'm gonna share my screen again. All right, let me see. Okay, can y'all see
All
myself?
right, you're back.
Okay, let me see. All right. Well, I can see, let me see. I'm trying to get back to my screen. I don't get back to.
Nope, we can't hear you. Your voice is coming. We can see it's typing on the screen, but we can't hear you. Nope.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay, I can hear you now. All right, good. All right. So let me keep on going. Let me see if I can keep on going. Okay, good. All right, here we go. All right, so Donald Trump positioned himself as a clear change candidate, and because he was going to be totally different than Obama. Then when he ran again, when he ran against Biden, Trump's slogan was "Make America Great Again," resonated strongly with those who fell behind the globalization of economic changes. His focus was revitalizing American industry and national pride. Well, that's the first time he ran, and he was anti-establishment because he didn't go along with the politics that America was used to having, as in the politics of there being a two-party system in which that they cooperated together. He believed in dominance over one party over the other. So comparing analysis of his strategies, divergent strategies, contrasting strategies of Clinton and Trump reflect the differing approaches. There's the concept of political campaigns, the voter appeal. Clinton's strategy sought to appeal a broad uh, demographic by promising the stability of gradual change, whereas in Trump was more aggressive change agenda, specifically targeting voters feeling disenfranchised and eager for significant transformation. The impact of the voter turnout was the effectiveness of each campaign strategy was evidenced in voter turnout. And Trump's clear message of change mobilized a substantial base, particularly among those who felt disconnected from the political process. And while Clinton struggled to energize her supporters around a more complex narrative, which which is um which is the reason why that he ran that campaign, because he knew how many people he knew the people that felt like they weren't part of the American system because they thought that the things that they held valuable, or the things that they held important, wasn't important to the other politicians and the other political interests that was out there. So he decided he was going to do something different. So the ongoing promise of change. Think about the change in 2020. Joe Biden had a vision, and his vision in the 2020 presidential election was he was going to campaign on a platform promising significant changes to the status quo. And the status quo at that point was Donald Trump. And so anything that Donald Trump was doing, Joe Biden said, I'm going to do it totally different than him. And the public response to change, the voters' sentiment in 2020 reflected a desire for change because they were tired of the whole situation with the COVID virus and all the other things that happened during that regime. So anything that would have been different was going to make the voters a little bit more involved than what they had been seeing. While Biden promised transformative change, Donald Trump focused on maintaining his previous policies, which we understand were not going to be the policies that we was going to accept in America. And the role of the Democratic Party was rallied around Biden's promise of change, emphasizing the need for a shift in the previous administration. So, historical context of the promises. Previous election change. Historically, the presidential election has been marked by candidates promising change. Biden's political legacy. Biden's political career has been characterized by advocacy for change his time in the Senate and to the role of a vice president. in his commitment to tackling issues like health reform and economic inequality. The impact of social movements, rise in social movements advocating racial justice, climate action, and economic reform influence. And then voter turnout. We all saw the voter turnout. It was like the biggest voter turnout in American history, and that's what propelled Joe Biden to be the president in 2020. And so thinking about that as in that we understand that in politics, we understand that the person who can exhibit that they're going to do something with change from where the political climate was before is going to be the person who's going to win the election. And so going into how frames can improve change management when it comes down to businesses, the importance of employee-driven change, which is why we're talking about this, because we're talking about human resources. So we'll talk about the shift from top to bottom, from top down to bottom employees-driven initiatives, and that's understanding employee-driven change. Employee-driven change refers to initiatives that are inspired and enhanced by the employees themselves. And disadvantages of the top-down change often fails because it overlooks the insights and of the employees who are most affected by the changes. Okay, and success stories of employee-driven change, organizations that have embraced employee-driven change have seen positive outcomes when employees are involved in the process. They are more likely to support and contribute changes and resulting in innovative solutions and a more happy environment. So if you get the employees to buy into your change, then what's going to happen is that they'll work harder for you because they understand that the change is not going to just be affecting the wallet of the business owner. Is going to also be affecting the lives of the people who are working for the business. Okay, so the role of the employees in driving change is empowerment of the employees, collaboration and teamwork, and measuring the impact of employees' involvement. So in order to do this, you have to create the culture, going back to setting that vision that you have to, as a leader, that you have to have in order for these things to happen. You have to foster open communication. You got to open that communication with your employees so they can understand where you're going, and also so they can buy into to your vision. Training and development opportunities. Now, providing training and development opportunities equips the employees with skills needed to adapt to changes. This is not only to prepare them for the new challenges, but also to demonstrate the organization's commitment. And also recognizing and celebrating success. Recognizing and celebrating success, no matter how small, fosters a positive environment and encourages further participation of the employees. So if you to get your employees to buy into your change, you must create that culture in order for them to be able to see where they are in that process of what your changes are going to be. Okay. Now the dilemma of organizational change. Okay, leadership for the challenges of organizational adaptation, leadership changes. Changes in leadership often triggered by the need of organizations to adapt to quick. Leaders may bring different visions and strategies. Environmental pressures. Organizations face constant pressure from their external environment, including market trends, economic shifts, and competitive dynamics, pressures, and also which would be difficult to implement effectively, and exceeding grasp, as in organizations attempt to implement changes, and they often are ambitious and exceed their capacity. Sometimes the people want to change quicker than what they're capable of doing. So those are some of the challenges that organizations have when it comes down to challenges for changing. Now, the impact of resistance to change, and that happens a lot because sometimes employees, when they don't buy into the change, they do things in order to stop hinder change, and so that's why you have to have that buy-in, because resistance from employees be significant. It can impede the process, and cultural barriers. Also, organization cultures plays a pivotal role in the success of change. A culture that values stability and tradition may resist change because if you come in as a company and you want to do things totally different than what they're used to doing, then that's going to make them feel a certain way. Whereas in that they don't necessarily feel or are able to see your vision that you have for your company when it comes down to them being a part of that vision. And communication gaps. Again, if you don't communicate to your people that where you're going to go with your vision, then they're more apt to not be able to support you, and then they'll be looking for something else, or they'll just be trying to just resist you every step you try to take in order for you to change your organization. Okay, strategies for effective change management: engage your stakeholders. Make sure that your stakeholders feel involved with your vision. Incremental change approach. That means that don't try to do everything all at once. Try to do it in increments in order for people to be able to see as you go along. And then training and development. Always train your people to be able to handle the changes that's going to come in your company. And then understanding the consequences of actions. Now, the consequences are the things that affect businesses the most. We talk about Amarad in 2007. It emphasizes the decision makers often fail to achieve the objectives due to lack of understanding of their circumstances. And this ignorance consequences that could have been anticipated with better awareness. Warning signs. The text highlights that the decision makers frequently ignore warning signs and suggest that they are on the wrong path. This tendency to dismiss is a critical feedback and exacerbate the negative outcomes. And the blind march is like where Amarad describes the process of decision making as a, see, I can't read that. Okay. This metaphor illustrates how decision making focus on their goals that they fail to recognize, and ultimately leading to their failure. So, anticipating the outcomes, understanding the context. The key point of Amarad is necessary for decision makers to understand that the context in which they operate by gaining insights for their environment and factors at play that can make more informed choices. The feedback mechanisms. Importance of the feedback mechanisms is highlighted for improving the decision making and learning from their failures. Amarad advocates for a culture of learning from failures. By analyzing past decisions and their outcomes, decision makers can better anticipate the future consequences and refine their approaches. So strategies for better decision making: enhancing awareness, collaborative decision making, and scenario planning, as in planning for all kinds of scenarios so you could be ready for whatever happens. Okay. Now, so understanding cognitive lenses is defining of the cognitive lenses is cognitive lenses refer to the various perspectives and frameworks that individuals and organizations use to interpret information to make decisions. Okay, and the importance of diverse perspectives is having a variety of cognitive lenses is crucial for innovation. Managers who only rely on one or two perspectives may miss out on all the opportunities and fail to see the full picture. The challenges of limited thinking, limitations, and cognitive lenses can lead to narrow strategic thinking, and this is particularly evident in complex situations such as rebuilding efforts in post-conflict areas where multifaceted approaches are necessary. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on a little bit. Okay. Here's a couple of situations. A case study: the rebuilding of Iraq. The challenges faced in rebuilding Iraq highlight the necessity for a broad array of cognitive lenses. Because they thought that they're just going to be able to go into Iraq, and then when they go into Iraq, then they'll put down the rebellion, and then they'll be able to come back. But once we got all that equipment in Iraq, and there other things went on, then we and also after the assassination of bin Laden, then what happened is other leaders and other political enemies came to being, and so it wasn't a quick go in and get out situation. Collaborative innovation, encouraging collaboration among diverse groups can lead to innovative ideas. So collaborating is always going to be good to share the ideas, good ideas and best practices among businesses and organizations is always going to be a great thing. Overcoming cognitive biases, managers need to actively identify and mitigate cognitive biases that can limit strategic opinion options, and workshops and training sessions. Like I said, the more training that you get on all of these things, when it comes down to how to think about your organization, it's gonna help you. Tools for expanding cognitive lenses. Various tools and methodologies exist to help expand cognitive lenses, such as scenario planning, design thinking, and stakeholder analysis. Okay. And I think we've talked about a lot of these things already. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip on over this stuff. And future innovation strategies. I think we talked about that too. So let's move on to chapter 20. And by the way, I did tell you these were the longest chapters. All right, so the ethical dilemma in business. Okay, understanding ethics in business. The question of profit versus soul. Okay. Howard Schwartz, the chairman of Starbucks, raises a profound ethical question in his memo, referencing Mark chapter 8, verse 36. He says, and it says there, for what shall it profit a man if he have gained the whole world and lose his own soul? And this invites the business leaders to reflect on the moral implications of their decisions and emphasize the importance of maintaining one's integrity in pursuit of profit. And talk about the morals of the marketplace. The concept of the morals of the marketplace suggests a troubling where the ethical considerations are often sidelined in favor of profit. And that is something that even in education that we must consider, as in, like, are we doing it for the right reasons of the soul of education, or are we doing it for the profit of saving money, when it comes down to, like, not worrying about insurance and things of that nature, because we're trying to save money so we can do other things in education besides education. Balancing profit and ethics. Navigating the ethical dilemmas in business requires a capacity of achieving financial goals and upholding the moral standards must consider the long-term effects in their actions and stakeholder trust and overall societal impact. It is essential that prioritizes ethical behavior alongside profitability. So we must make sure that even with our profits that we desire, we still must maintain ethics in order for us to be able to going back to the question of profit versus soul, in order to maintain the soul of our companies and the soul of our organization. Okay. Now, here are some of the consequences of unethical practices. Short-term gains, but versus long-term sustainability. We talk about many businesses are prioritize short-term profits over ethical considerations, may experience immediate financial success. However, this approach can lead to significant long-term consequences. And that's just saying that sometimes you might try to make a quick buck, but eventually what's going to happen is that your quality is going to go down and your consumer trust will go down, and to the point where as in that is that you'll fade out like some of the other companies who thought that they would be around forever and try to turn a quick buck. Public perception and trust. Actions and business leaders significantly influence public perception. Unethical practices erode trust, not only in eventual companies, but also in entire industries. And also legal implications of ethical failures. Engaging in unethical behavior can lead to serious legal implications of business. Regulatory bodies often impose strict penalties on organizations that violate ethical guidelines or laws. In United States, we've had ethical laws for a long time when it comes down to like ethical, it's been at least since 1977 that we don't take bribes from other countries or bribes from people in business. However, there are countries that they were allowed to do that up to a certain point, but once they were shut down from doing that, what happened was that's when their unethical people were very very good about hiding the money, and that's where you get into these foreign accounts and these overseas accounts in order to hide money. But eventually what will happen is that even though that you may make a lot of money at the beginning, when the other companies find out, and then when the political entities find out that you have you broken some international laws, then the consequences are going to be very sharp. You might have made $1 billion, but you may lose $2 billion. And then there are some very steep jail terms for doing unethical practices. Okay, strategies for ethical decision making: implementing ethical guidelines, fostering ethical culture. Again, like you said, like I was saying before, you always want to foster a culture that's going to inspire people to do the right thing at all times, even when people aren't looking. But as we know in education, they're always looking. Okay, encouraging stakeholders in ethical practices, and that is another thing. Whereas in not just us as the individuals involved in the organization, but also our stakeholders who encourage us and who see our vision, and we want them to be as ethical as our businesses and our organizations. Okay. Ma'am, are you doing? Can you hear me?
Barely. I've got the volume turned up
Okay.
max on mine. You're getting further and further away.
Okay. I was wondering why you was doing that.
So I can hear.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna talk louder.
There
Is
you
that
go.
good?
And quicker. You're on the 2 minute, you're on
Okay.
2 minute clock now.
Okay. All right. So Okay. Just bribery, doing this right now, impact of corruption, balancing ethics. Simmons' business strategy, they were navigating legal landscape, and so you really can't hear me?
Barely. It says slow connection. You've got a bad connection.
Oh my goodness. All right. Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, everybody's telling me the same thing. All right. So, because I want, because I put on my hotspot. That's my hotspot on my phone because it was the most consistent. So let me see. Okay, I'm almost finished. Lessons from Simmons' experience. The importance of ethical decision making, repetition and trust, reputation and trust, and creating a culture of integrity. Okay. And I would bypass Walmart, and I would just let me see. Invitations. I'll just go to the end. I'm sorry. I don't know why my internet's doing this all of a sudden now. Okay. So ethical conflicts, financial ethics, lessons learned. Okay. Lessons learned. The importance of transparency. Being transparent is vital to maintain trust of the stakeholders. Ethics training is essential. Regular ethics training is crucial for fostering ethical workplace. Accountability mechanisms, establishing clear accountability mechanisms is necessary to ensure that all employees, regardless of position, have responsibility for their actions, and continuous monitoring and assessment. Companies should continuously monitor their practices and assess their ethical culture. The end.
All righty. You can stop your share now. I've got 3 quick points before we get to Pauline. We're still good on our time. All right, 3 quick points from James's presentation. And this is from lessons learned over the years. Be careful with awards and recognitions. Don't reward expected behavior. Everybody don't get a trophy. This is not your kids' t-ball league or soccer or whatever. If you get into that, then you lessen the expectations of your organization. That's a killer. Don't rely on rewarding expected behavior. You have to have higher standards than that. Be careful letting employees do whatever they want to do under the guise of shared governance. It's still governance. You still have to be in charge. You can't abdicate your responsibility. You can delegate the activity, but not the responsibility. That still comes back to you as the leader. And then finally, and this is the one that hurts people's feelings, but everybody's perspective is not of the same value. You got people on your staffs that you need to listen to. You got others you need to nod your head and go on about your business. And you got to be smart enough to know which those are. Everybody's opinion is not of the same value. Again, that's like everybody gets a trophy. No, sorry. That's that same slippery slope that we get on that James's opinion is the same as Sandy's is the same as Chiquetta's. No, they're not. And you got to be smart enough to know that. All right, moving on to Pauline. Okay, Pauline, you're still muted. There you go.
Okay, this is chapter 21. Let me just move you out the way. All right, this is business school, a case from 1974. The president and fellow of Harvard College performed this study. It's basics for class discussion rather than to illustrate either effective or ineffective handling of an administrative situation. Here are some ways. So this chapter basically illustrates the progress of a following new principal, David King, through his first week in a deeply troubled urban school. This chapter is familiar with the frames and reframing of organization leadership. Mr. King's reflection is far from helpless, but he has many actions to choose from. He also rediscovered an ancient truth. Reflection is a spiritual discipline like meditation, prayer, and faith to the path of a follower's heart. He knows the road ahead is still long and difficult, yet he is confident and energized to start. Here's some crucial takeaways for administration for the first school year. The troubles manifest from the beginning of the school year. Students assaulted several teachers. So basically, this just basically went over the problems that Mr. King was facing as soon as he signed up for the school. I felt he should have listened to the staff and hired security guards. Staff should have never felt unsafe at the school, and multiple assaults and robberies on the teachers that took place. The parents protested after school, and as an administrator, notifying the community of occurrences and taking steps to ensure that that would not happen again. So that was some of the stuff that had happened with the previous principal. Cutbacks were for the summer program. Mr. Weiss should have investigated more options to increase safety. Debates took place during school hours and threats were made to other staff members. So basically, teachers were fighting with teachers. Protests were going on in front of the school. Faculty members felt the school was unsafe, and he failed to remind staff of the purpose of their dedication to students. So basically what Mr. King did, he went back to this failing school and reviewed what that previous principal did his first and second year, which was the first time the school building was open. So his first week, he arrived at Kennedy High School and he just began interviewing the administrators, and he made his purpose of these meetings was to familiarize himself with the school problems and the key takeaways. The strategy demonstrates commitment to school leadership and the concern for respect and staff input. What he began taking the notes was finding the lists of the administrators and their role. Upon looking, he noticed there were several vacant positions and an imbalance of race and ethnicity within the roles. He also noted the hostile relationships between staff, and that included a circulating newspaper requesting the removal of staff members. So this newspaper went around, it was anonymous, and it was just saying, get rid of this teacher, get rid of this teacher. So he quickly became aware of what needed to be taken care of first, which one of the things was filling those vacant positions at the school. His first team meet, he started on Monday, he had it on Friday. That weekend, he just stood at home at his table, his laptop with a cup of coffee. He recalls the people blaming approach. That's in chapter 2, in which individuals blame everyone else. He just kept in mind remembering the lessons from the structural frame and how we blame individuals when the problem is real. How do you say that?
Systemic.
So the two cornerstones of the structure was differentiated and integration. So his reflection, as he sat on his table, he felt that he needs to go into what's called going to the balcony. It's a metaphor that describes the practice of stepping back and basically that action gained to perspective. And this is from a site from 1994. And he included a value member, principals in other schools, close members, and even his spouse to look at alternative perceptions in pinpointing the problem. Sometimes, basically, if you get someone else's different eyes, they can kind of pinpoint the obvious, something that you just kind of overlook. he used this collective plan to create a course of action. His theory became for reforming of the school, which was don't think, do. He began by reframing the school, what's going on, and what are the options that we have available. He organized his ideas chart, the structure, human resources, political, symbolic, and the reframing process, like management and leadership, it's more of an art than a science. Basically, every artist brings wisdom and produces their unique words. The process, it builds the knowledge, intuition, and the wisdom, and framing will give Dr. King what he knows, and it will help him to feel less confused and very overwhelmed. Reflection is spiritual, is discipline, and it's much like meditation and prayer. Dr. King knows that the road to success is still long and challenging. However, there's no guarantee for success. But again, he feels confident and energized for this job. In conclusion, he knows the road to success is still long and challenging. However, he felt confident and energized when he first started. All right, chapter 22 I had. This basically goes back into a 1983 book, The Modern Approaches to Understanding and Leadership. The 4 frames will describe in a way for better understanding. Since leaders have gained more confidence in the 4 frames, the combination of research, evidence, and experience has confirmed our initial hope for assisting leaders in the position. Leaders and managers, high personal creativity to respond to challenges, sense of choice and freedom, good manners, and leaders offering support. They know how to communicate their vision and very clear of where they would like to go, and the creativity when handling conflict from the leader and the organization. Organizations need leaders who could provide purpose and direction. Effective leaders demonstrate there's a cause for the hope. It's a commitment to core beliefs. Multi-frame thinking. Influential leaders are committed to resilience, and strategies involving a paradox. They utilize multiple frames. Leaders fail when they take too narrow of a view. So it's very important just to kind of look beyond the noise and just kind of focus on, okay, what's next? They think flexible and see organization with multiple angles. On page 421, they describe the multi-frame thinking. It's challenging and also counterintuitive to keep up in the changing world. Must be able to see the same organization in different categories. If you fail behind, you become irrelevant. The power of change, especially during these days, is vital for modern leaders. Commitment and flexibility. We're all aware that organizations, they struggle to cope with the shrinking planet and global economy. The wise, artistic leaders are needed to help close the gap. In this world of effective organization, we need this. We need that effective organization, and the slow meets the depressing social demands. Without commitment and flexibility, we will continue to see misdirected resources, massive, ineffective, and unnecessary human pain and suffering. In conclusion, the authors revised this book to lay the ground for new generations of managers and leaders. And we need to recognize the importance of the philosophy as well as analysts of the technique. Leaders are needed as pioneers to embrace the fundamental values of spirit. Most importantly, they need to know that they care about the people that they are leading. I had some reflection questions. I put them down, but I also answered. I was going to ask what causes you stress? So basically, the whole reflection of this book, they really understand that stress is really basically the factors that keep us at home still racing. So what causes me stress is When my family members, my children are asking me for favors, especially when it's financial or action. Next question is, are you spending enough time taking care of yourself so that so you could be the best version of yourself? You can't take care of others when you can't take care of yourself. They give that whole analogy of when you're on an airplane is going down, you're going to put the mask over yourself before putting it on the children. For myself, I like to do yoga in the morning. It really chills me out. I also do a 10-minute mediation. During my lunch break. In the evening, I like to read. So currently I'm reading The Real James Dean. I know most people haven't heard of him, but he's really good looking. How do you want your leadership to be? How would I want my leadership to be remembered? My answer is to be approachable, supportive, and down to earth. That's the conclusion.
Hey, Pauline,
All right.
is this
Thank
is is this the slide that you was supposed to be on?
Yeah, we're good.
So that slide was like is okay.
All right. I've got one more thing to add, and I'm sure you all know this. All right. All right. This is the most effective way. This is kind of a summary of the last two chapters that Pauline did tonight. This is the most effective way that I know to frame where you are personally and as a leader in the organization is to do a SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And you can adapt this to individual school levels, and you can adapt it to your person. There's different frames of this with different perspectives. But basically, that's what King was doing when he was going through his system of reframing. He was doing a SWOT analysis, whether he knew it or not at the time. And so it's a helpful tool when you're trying to reframe an organization. First thing you ought to do is a SWOT analysis. When you're trying to reframe yourself as a leader to handle your stress and to meet the objectives that you set forth for yourself, again, SWOT analysis is the best way to do that by far. And it can be adapted. There are some adaptations for your personal life and your professional life and for organizations as well, is to do that SWOT analysis. And that's basically what 21 and 22 are about. All right. I want to circle back. I'm keeping an eye on our time here. I know it's late. I want to circle back to awards and rewards again. That has become kind of the basis for personnel now. The notion of paying more or rewarding more or those kinds of things. I want you to think about that, both the pros and the cons. And that's what one of the things that we're going to talk about next Saturday is this notion of building a family. Should we run our school like a family? That's one of the lenses I want us to look at. That's become a big thing now to try to address our problems. And the other is this notion of awards and rewards. And thinking back to our adult learning theory and Hertzberg's theories of motivation, I want us to be able to put those are the two biggest things going on right now to try to address our teacher shortage, our teacher retention problems. We're looking at, we'll build this family culture or we'll do awards and rewards. And let's look at those through the lens of our theorists to tell us and predict how successful we're going to be as organizations when we try to reframe through those two lenses. And that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to reframe the school business, public education through those two lenses. What do our theorists tell us about that? What are the pros and cons of that? That's kind of what we're going to talk about in a week and a half when I see you. I thank you all for being with us tonight. Enjoyed your presentations. Anybody have anything for the good of the group?
Dr. Lamb,
Yes.
I have a question. All of the presentations, like, can we get a copy of those, or can they be put in a folder?
Yeah, we can do that. The hard copies.
Yeah, like I would like the slides of everyone that presented.
Okay, when they upload those
That's
in
a
the
good idea.
presentation box, I have those, and I'll be able to put them in a folder for us.
That's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, I can do that. That's a good that was good. I was actually in a meeting this morning about wanting to know, should we close our courses for graduate? They want to close them but I said no, I want them to stay open. A lot of students go back and get that stuff, especially at dissertation time. So I was trying to fight that battle this morning. So hopefully they're going to leave them open. And so, yeah, a lot of these things are good things to have when it comes dissertation time to pull some of this stuff. It's good references.
Definitely.
That was the argument I made this very morning at grad council. I can't believe that come up already. But yeah, you're exactly right. We need to keep our shelves open. Our materials need to be accessible. All right. I'll work on putting us a folder with everybody's work in it. That'll be a good thing to do. That'll keep me busy. I got too much idle time. All right. I'll see y'all Saturday week. Everybody have a safe week, and I'll see you then. Good night.
All right, good
Happy
night.
Mother's Day.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.